Yeah, that's right. I mean, this really has, I mean, the attack itself shocked Australia. Australia's not a place where you get these mass shootings, or at least frequently. So the attack itself has been shocking, but incidents of anti-Semitic behaviour have been escalating in Australia in recent years, and that's because the events in the Middle East have been quite a divisive one for Australians. Of course, very sympathetic to Israel for the attack by Hamas, but equally concerned about the humanitarian situation that occurred inside Gaza. You saw very big pro-Palestine protests happening in Australia, a country that also looked to recognise a Palestinian state. So an issue that's really divided Australia. And obviously there were warning signs with the rise in anti-Semitic behaviour that's gone on, and now really quite a reflective exercise
Right.
is like, was that something that could have been addressed much more fulsomely before this attack really brought it front and centre?
We do news at Bloomberg News. Mathieson taught me that. But I want to talk, Roz, about the zeitgeist that's out there, speculation and rumor that Iran or other forces were involved with this attack or were involved with anti-Semitism within Australia. Is there something unique about the nation versus other parties with America or the continent of Europe?
Well, I recall the ASIO chief, this is kind of the intelligence chief, speaking recently to some of the intelligence organizations and saying, yes, there had been signs that perhaps Iran was trying to directly cause trouble by sort of fomenting these feelings inside Australia, amplifying them and so on, but also doing that in many other countries as well. In terms of this specific shooting, it was a father and a son, and we really don't know what they were thinking personally because the father is dead. He was shot dead. The son is in critical condition, having been shot in hospital. We know that the son was on the intelligence radar back in 2019. He did come to some sort of attention, but what drove them in the minute to do this attack? Because the reports, they told family members they were going away on a fishing trip. So they seemed to have deceived their own family even about it. Obviously it was a target attack on the Australian Jewish community, but what was the impetus for those two individuals to go and carry out that attack? We simply, at this point, we don't know.
Roz, what are the state of gun regulations in Australia these days?
Well, it's interesting because it's brought back a lot of the conversation around gun control, because Australia has some of the most stringent gun control laws on the planet. They were enacted after what was known as the Port Arthur Massacre back in 1996. A lone gunman killed more than 30 people. And the government at the time moved very swiftly to enact these laws with the states banning automatic weapons, most semi-automatic weapons. But since then, Australia's kind of fallen into a bit of complacency about it. They've always said, well, we have these
Right.
rules in place. They're decades old, and gun crime in Australia is relatively low. Mass casualty gun crime is relatively low. But some of these laws were never fully enacted. There's been disagreements between states about how to regulate. They haven't arguably kept up with the times. The number of guns in Australia is back on the rise. And so perhaps sort of resting in a way in this assurance that we've got these laws and they're doing all this stuff for us is no longer going to wash,
Right.
given what we've seen on the weekend. And so it's really going to prompt a
Right.
fundamental re-examination of gun control in Australia, and whether those laws need to be adapted, modernised,
Right.
and really adapted for the times that we're in now.